All right, let's get right into today's explainer, which focuses on a truly fascinating and honestly kind of terrifying text called Doomscrolling to Enlightenment. Now, what makes this source so completely unique is how it approaches our digital habits. It doesn't just write off doom scrolling as some bad habit you need to break. No, it actually deconstructs the psychology behind it by treating it like a highly devoted, almost fanatical religious practice. And the author? Well, they really do not hold back. Right out of the gate, we're plunged into this dark, satirical reality with the line, "This is not a self-help book. This is a self-destruction manual disguised as Enlightenment literature." So yeah, we are dropping the whole illusion of wellness and self-care here. We're going to face the visceral, uncomfortable truth of our digital habits and break down exactly how this journey of self-destruction masks itself as staying informed. So let's start at the beginning with Section 1, The Algorithm Wakes Up. 11 hours and 43 minutes. Just let that number sink in for a second. This staggering figure is the author's actual daily screen time average. I mean, that's not a hobby, right? That is more than a full-time job. It's incredible to think that back in 2009, the author was just this innocent user with a phone that only made calls and played Snake. But slowly, subtly, the algorithm woke up. It learned their vulnerabilities, found their exact outrage triggers, and transformed them from a casual browser into a fully optimized digital addict whose entire waking life is now mediated by a glowing rectangle. Which brings us right to Section 2, the 4 sacred hours.
So, every single night, this doom scroller's spiritual practice follows a really strict sequence. At 11 p.m., it usually starts off reasonable enough with the global overview, checking legitimate news, reading up on the economy, maybe some global events. But by midnight, you're spiraling into the microplastics deep dive, hunting for these hyper-specific, terrifying anxieties. Then around 1 a.m., your exhausted brain makes the parasocial pivot to pure internet drama. And finally, by 2 a.m. and beyond, you hit thumb paralysis, where your physical body is literally revolting in pain, but you just keep swiping and refreshing anyway.
And here's where it gets wild, because that midnight deep dive, it leads to some wildly irrational real-world actions. The author calls this the Tupperware awakening. Get this. In the middle of the night, after falling down a terrifying rabbit hole about endocrine disruptors and plastic, the author actually panic bought $743 worth of glass containers. Seriously, $743. Have you ever tried to buy your way out of 3 a.m. anxiety? It's like they were desperately purchasing this illusion of control to fix a totally niche anxiety, completely ignoring their actual problem, which is the screen addiction itself. Now let's dig into the psychology in Section 3, Anxiety Disguised as Awareness. We love to lie to ourselves about this, don't we? Doom scrollers constantly justify spending half their lives on a phone by saying they're staying informed. They see themselves as these active citizens, morally bearing witness to the world's problems. But the pathetic actual reality, they're sitting completely alone in a dark room reading about Tupperware. They're just maintaining a constant state of low-level panic and, if we're being totally honest, consuming other people's suffering as entertainment. Actually, the author's therapist completely pierced through this whole delusion with one incredibly profound question. What if the feeling of being aware is just the feeling of cortisol? Wow. I mean, that just cuts right through what the author calls the superiority complex sutra of the chronically online. This totally false idea that being endlessly stressed out by the news somehow makes you a better, more moral citizen than someone who's just tending to their own garden. And this leads us to another huge symptom of this digital reality. The parasocial relationship. You suddenly find yourself deeply emotionally invested in absolute internet strangers. You start caring intensely about the daily lives of people you refer to as political Jonathan or funny Sarah. And the crazy part? You're doing this while totally neglecting the actual physical human being sitting right next to you on the couch. Why? Because these online relationships offer this safe, cozy illusion of intimacy, but with absolutely zero real-world risk or vulnerability. Okay, moving on to Section 4. Curating your personal apocalypse. Once you've mastered the basics, you move on to actively ruining your own feed. Optimizing an algorithm for maximum suffering actually takes work. You have to identify your specific doom type, follow the most extreme voices, and engage strategically. But the most vital and frankly hilarious step is Step 3, unfollow all joy. To truly become a master of the doom scroll, you literally have to actively mute or block anyone who posts positive content. No good news, no cute dog videos, no beautiful nature photos. You have to ensure your feed remains a completely unbroken, pure stream of misery. So, what kind of doomer are you? While some people like to curate their personal apocalypse around really niche horrors,
Maybe they become a health doomer or an existential doomer, endlessly worrying about soil depletion or weird fonts. The author freely admits to being an everything doomer. Why pick one? They want to consume the full catastrophe across all categories simultaneously, just completely maxing out their anxiety levels.
And finally, we hit rock bottom. Section 5, hitting the digital void. Down here in the 3 a.m. bardo, users desperately start seeking out things like the ratio. If you don't know, this is basically social media's version of divine retribution. The author talks about spending hours just watching a complete stranger get publicly shamed, getting ratioed, over posting a totally tone-deaf photo of a latte during a global crisis. For the addict, witnessing this digital mob justice gives them a fleeting, fake sense of cosmic order and consequence in a completely chaotic universe. But then, it happens. The mask slips. You get the most terrifying screen an addict can see. You're all caught up. This error message is horrific for a doomscroller because it's the exact moment the infinite scroll suddenly reveals itself as finite. Now, a normal person would just go to sleep, right? But the addict? They frantically start digging into random search terms and stalking the profiles of complete strangers, just doing whatever it takes to keep that drip of dopamine flowing. And we can't ignore how this addiction inevitably bleeds out into the physical world. Just think about our hyper-specific, weird public behaviors. There's the bathroom scroll, which you excuse to your friends as having a weak bladder, when really it's a 14-minute scroll session. Or the under-table scroll, where you're supposedly listening thoughtfully but are totally ignoring the conversation. And then it hits rock bottom, the absolute horrific admission of standing at a family funeral, pretending to pay your respects when you are actually secretly reading a Twitter fight. When it gets this bad, you eventually need backup. You seek out a digital support network. The author ended up joining a group chat literally called The Void Screams Back, and the rules are absurd. It's basically a place where a bunch of internet strangers share the massive cognitive load of trying to process 17 simultaneous global catastrophes at once. They are effectively destroying their mental health as a team, providing doom support while strictly enforcing a total ban on any good news. But then, the whole system just snaps. This is the ultimate mic drop moment in The Explainer. One of the group chat members, Sarah P., has a sudden moment of pure clarity. She realizes they aren't staying informed at all. They are literally just consuming suffering as an entertainment product. So she drops this exact message in the chat. I'm out. I'm deleting Twitter. I love you all, but I can't do this anymore. And just like that, she escapes the timeline. So what happens to her? 3 weeks later, Sarah reports back to the group. Someone asks her if she's finally happy, and her response is brilliant. She says she is, quote, less miserable, which feels like the same thing. She freely admits that, yeah, she's a little bored now and totally disconnected from the online discourse. But for the first time in years, she's actually finally present in her own physical life. Which brings us to the end of this explainer and leaves us with a really uncomfortable, provocative question to ask ourselves. Are you actually staying informed, or are you just addicted to panic? Seriously, take a hard look at your own screen time this week. We have to reconsider the true cost of our digital awareness. What is your need to stay informed really doing for you? And more importantly, what is it taking away from the real, tangible life right in front of you?